Welcome back to Yellow Turbans Abridged. Last time we killed Liu Bei, Guan Yu and Zhang Fei, ending our war with the Liu clan's faction. We also had a war with Liu Bu, he's back at it again. We took out all of his armies and took all quote-unquote of his territory. But he's still at war with us, he still exists despite us no longer being able to see him, so we'll just have to come back to that. In the meantime, a bigger issue comes up at about this point in the campaign. I was looking round up north for evidence of Liu Bu's presence. I had seen in one of the end turn sequences he had an army somewhere, and I eventually found it here, sneaking into our territory. So this suggests that whatever's left of Liu Bu is on the other side of Kong Rong to our east. We'll keep that in mind for much later, because now, as I said, we're going to be changing focus. And it all starts with Yuan Shu. He declares war on us right there. Not really unexpected, because he keeps doing that. But the problem is he's become very powerful. And, most importantly, he has as his vassal the remnants of Liu Bei's faction, who have this massive, really long, really messy border with us, and they're almost certainly just going to get called into the war on the next term. So, I thought, well, we've got to end this war with Liu Bu right now, and he was willing to go for peace. Interestingly, he says something like, "I thought you were dead," right there. I thought you were dead, Liu Bu. I don't know how you're still alive. This is outrageous, especially because he still has loads of factions as his vassal as well. Really cheeky. Anyway, as we move on, Yuan Shang also declares war on us. That's the remnants of Yuan Shao's faction, I believe, so a nice big opponent to have coming in from the north. Then the game has the audacity to demand I increase the difficulty level, apparently. And I didn't think this would be a good idea, considering this campaign has ground down to a halt and is pretty much a stalemate at this point. But I thought, facetiously, I'm going to increase it just because it suggested I do it in order to kind of prove through my own pain and sacrifice that this was a bad thing for the game to suggest me to do. It's going to make the game less fun. Well, we'll see how it turns out. So now, as predicted, we are at war all over the place because this faction that I forget the name of is at war with us, so we're going to have to try and defend our really messy border somehow. We don't have the money to build new big armies or something. We can add a few units into this one as a start. We'll just have to see what it can do. We do also have these few guys in the south, and they score a bit of a win here. We sneak in and claim some territory just before someone else was about to do it. So that's nice. We've got our little empty domain in the south. If we're ever at peace long enough to get some cash, we'll be able to build something up there. Yuan Shu calls someone else into the war with us. I didn't know who this was, but it's actually someone who does have a border with us. It's the faction that controls the main city of Luoyang to our east there, so they could actually attack us. I thought it was the army just outside the Luoyang trade port, but actually that's someone else under Yuan Shu who has the same portrait in a confusing twist. Anyway, as for what I'm doing, Gong is rushing back towards the capital region, since I predicted Yuan Shu would probably do something there, and the other army that was up there fighting Liu Bu is going down to the south in general to look for other targets to attack. Now the enemy aren't very proactive, so here we are another turn later. They haven't done anything against us, so the first attack of the war will be mine. We're going to attack the Chang'an Jade Mine that we previously lost to Yuan Shu. So, going to be able to take that back with the cheeky auto-resolve. Very nice, that's the first blood drawn. And it was similarly quiet down in the south. No sign of invasion across our big border. I guess the enemy weren't ready for it. So, my men arrive and start the offensive. We lay siege to the Ba small city. Could just auto-resolve this because there's basically nothing inside. But you're not allowed to auto-resolve on the first turn of a city siege. So we have to stand around for a bit. But things are looking okay there. But then, the enemy do start attacking us, and it's all starting up here at the Luoyang trade port. The force we saw hanging around unites with a big army under Wei Yan. This must be one of Yuan Shu's main armies, got lots of actual units and stuff in it. And they're going to attack the town. The balance bar does not look very good. However, because this is a town with lots of towers, I thought let's go in and give it a little bit of a last stand anyway, because we can do some antics. And in particular, I'm just going to focus on killing enemy officers, because I know the towers are super effective at doing that. By the time I come to look at the leader of the first army, she's already dead, so that's a good start. And as for their foot soldiers who are charging in, there are not enough of them in the first army to break through the few men we have defending, so our towers will wreck them as well. Here comes another general charging in at us. He's lost pretty much his whole unit on the way in. That might be the general himself, the only guy who actually made it through. My response to this is to pull these horse archers back towards some other towers further in, so those towers will take him out instead. So that is all good stuff. This, by the way, is before towers were hugely nerfed, which I believe they have been at the time of recording this or releasing this. Anyway, the main force under Wei Yan starts its attack, and we're in luck, because only a few units actually attacked. You can see at the back there, most of the army is just walking around. I guess they want to attack the other side of the town or whatever. So this allows me to concentrate my men against the few guys that did attack and hold them off for much longer than I expected. Meanwhile, all of that first army has just been taken out. That is all good stuff. Now then, it's just a question of how many more enemies can we kill. And this first group, with all the officers in it, is doing terribly. The towers are slowly shooting them to pieces, although we are about to lose the tower actually. We've been pushed too far back, so this is about the end of our exploit times. And of course, eventually, all the other units decided to just attack, and we don't have enough men to actually hold the various entry points to the town. So that's going to be the end of that. And the question is just how many men did we kill in the end? I'm not going to show you my micro. I did tons of micro to get the enemy to run around the other towers and lose more men. But one of the annoying aspects of the replenishment system is that last stands like this don't actually do anything. Because if you don't kill entire units, it doesn't matter, and in this game in particular, it doesn't even matter if you kill whole units, unless you do what we did to that first army and kill all the officers as well. So I think we did kill the army that was basically dead already, but the main force didn't take any damage. They lost troops, but unless we can fight them in the next 1 to 2 turns before those troops respawn, then it won't matter. Which we won't, so effectively that was a waste of time, which is why I'm cutting it out of this video. Now we're going to look at this siege of the Ba small city. Had a message saying the walls have been damaged by some random event, which will help us out. But more importantly, there's an enemy army in the river just next to the city, so we're probably going to be attacked next turn. So I thought, let's try and take the city now. Let's get inside the walls and use them to defend instead. The auto-resolve is only a Pyrrhic victory, so even though we have a giant advantage with our army, we can't take a Pyrrhic victory because we might be attacked in a second, so we're going to have to do a fairly long and technical manual battle to try and get this done with minimal casualties. I'll be cutting most of this out, but I did try a few experimental things that I'll comment on. You can see I'm not attacking from multiple directions, which is the usual normal strategy to do. I'm going to attack all at one point and try to do some baiting tactics. I'm going to get the enemy to try and run out of ammunition. Although actually my initial plan was what you can see me doing here. I thought maybe I can distract the enemy archers and then kill them with my archers, but it quickly became clear that archers on walls are sufficiently defended by the walls that they barely take any losses to return fire, so I just left them to it, didn't want to waste my ammo since we can kill melee units later. And instead, I just let my men stand there and get hit, using chanters to enhance my armour, and using shielded units who have a 50% chance of blocking all missile attacks. We gradually just make the enemy run out of ammo without inflicting that much damage. They only killed about 1 unit's worth of troops in the end. Also, while I was doing this, I noted that your stats are actually dependent on your hit points, which also confirmed to me that there is a hit point stat. You can see it mentioned here in this tooltip. So your men do have health, which is why they don't always die when bad things happen to them. And as their health declines, their stats go down as well. So that's a turn up for the books, hadn't noticed. Not that I've really paid any attention to the stats, because I always like to play it on a feeling-based system, where I go, this unit's light and it has these weapons, and then I guess its capabilities based on that, rather than comparing numbers and things. Always playing it by ear in that regard, but anyway, now I know there is some semblance of a health system going on, and you can just tank arrows for a while without dying. I also tried this little sneaky tactic. Basically the same thing, but using the ram I had as cover. If you sit just on the edge of the enemy's range, many of the arrows that would hit you in this situation end up hitting the ram instead. It doesn't do any damage to the ram. So this just means your stealing enemy arrows strategy can be more effective. And eventually we get ourselves here. The enemy have no ammo, the towers nearby have already been destroyed by the siege, so we can freely just stand in front of their walls. And now we have all the arrows, so we'll start just raining shots on whichever units we please. There weren't that many good targets, save the cav resist arrows, and the archers, well, we can just kill them in melee later. But might as well use our arrows for something, so we kill a whole load of guys in this fashion. I had to wait for some enemy spear troops to get drawn over from elsewhere in the city. Eventually they did, then we could shoot arrows at them, a bit more effective. Also, they still had some of their archers up on the wall. So I just ordered some men to climb up and start killing them in melee, and they only started retreating when it was a bit too late, so that was pretty effective. Anyway, after a while I get bored and actually go inside the city to kill the enemy, and once our cav are in there we're fine because we can just plough through the place, and as we now know, spearmen don't actually resist cav, so it's fine to just charge right into the spears even if they're blocking the street, as long as they're moving a little bit, which they usually are, so that's all fine. Elsewhere, my infantry are doing a bit of the standard rear attack action to take down the enemy's spear guard troops, and now let's skip to the end. We lost 300 men, perfectly fine, and the city walls are now ours. So, if Huang Zhang and his big army in the river wants to come and attack us, we've now got a pretty hefty defender's advantage, as long as the walls get repaired up, that is, since we are missing a few towers. With the Chang'an Jade Mine secured, we might as well have Gong take the main force over to challenge the invasion coming from the east at the Luoyang trade port. Wei Yan's still standing there. He's in forced march, so he actually isn't replenishing despite my earlier complaints, so that's nice. There we saw Huang Zhang does go and besiege the Ba Small city as I had feared, so good thing we went inside. Yuan Shang is sneaking past Luoyang on the river, so he's now near the capital. And Kong Rong just randomly declared war on us, so now the situation is deteriorating even further. We've now got multiple stacks of enemies up in the far north where we have no defences whatsoever, having just abandoned the area to try and defend our middle and south. It's all very annoying. Wei Yan's moving off somewhere, Yuan Shang's moved past us, so even there we might be about to have our defences breached, the enemy might get past Gong Du. Overall, it's not an ideal situation in the north, and in the south it's not really good either. There's another army that's just appeared near the Jiangyang city, so that place may be about to fall. The only possible hope we have is to rear attack it with many fewer troops coming from the south, which probably won't help. We can't take Chengdu's farmlands because its garrison is too big for our small army, and our big full stack, our second main force, is in the middle of our territory, not near enough to anything to defend anytime soon. Seeing all this, I'm going to start making concessions. It's time to get peace with someone, and the best option would be Yuan Shu, because then we also get his vassal out of the war as well. No one wants peace, but with negotiations that we've now unlocked, we can start moving towards peace. I can give him the various things that we have, like horses and weapons, because we have more of them than we need, and they're worth a lot in negotiations, more than money and food in many cases. So we put those on the table, and then throw in a bit of money and a 10-turn food deal, and we're able to convince Yuan Shu to end the war with us, so that's pretty nice. It was a bit of a mixed war, but you could say that we won. We took 2 of his territories and he took 1 of ours, but the border situation in the south remains really off, and we're probably going to have to fight them again at some point to try and resolve all of this. But for now, those 2 armies down in the south are no longer hostile to us. That makes our life a lot easier. Now we can focus on the northern situation. So our force that was moving to the south will now start marching back up to the north, having just spent a load of turns marching down there. All a big waste. Our empire's shape and the aggression of the AI is really screwing us over for a min-max efficiency campaign here. And Gong Du, no longer needing to be over at Luoyang, will start moving back towards the capital to see what the Yuan Shang army does. At the start of the next turn, we had an interesting oversight come up. There's a message saying that Liu Bei has discovered Zhuge Liang, the sleeping dragon. But Liu Bei's dead. We executed him ourselves. I guess that story event still takes place even if he's dead. Probably should have checked for that or something. Anyway, the army that was about to defend against Huang Zhang is going to take a leaf out of his book and use the river to move. You can move pretty far on the river every turn. And my objective is to go over to the east, where there are some Han Empire territories here in the mountains. We're not at war with them, but because we're at war in the north, and that's where Lu Bu is, the Han Empire's vassal master, we're probably going to be safe to attack the Han Empire, because if Lu Bu comes to attack us to retaliate, our forces will be roughly where he's going to attack. So it's as good a time as any to try and take Han Empire lands, basically. But before any of that, looks like Yuan Shang is trying to sneak past us here in the capital. He's in march stance and is probably going up towards the Anding commandery. Looking at his army, he's got some actual units. We've never seen units like this so far. High tier units with like equipment and skills and everything. So perhaps we don't have the man for man advantage, but he is in march stance, so his stamina is going to be low and our units are really high level. and of course we'll be using night attack. So we end up with a balanced engagement where I think in reality we'll have something of an advantage. Similar to many previous battles, we begin by annoyingly putting our horse archers on the enemy's flank and just shooting them to see how they react. And similar to previous AI reactions, they form a crescent with a load of cav, which then just stands there and gets shot. They are somewhat covered by the trees, so it wasn't that effective in this case. But after killing about a unit's worth of men, the AI was enraged, and they sent at first their entire army towards my 3 units of horse archers. I started running them backwards, and the enemy split up, sending some men to chase the horse archers, and some others to just come and attack our men who were gradually making their way across the battlefield elsewhere. It's only like 3 units of cav and some infantry coming in at first, so there's not much they can do, but they're trying to do it. And our arrows are doing some damage back to them, not that much because a lot of them are shielded. It was actually our cav that dealt with the situation. The enemy charged in, and here we catch them just in the flank before they attack our front line. That was pretty nice. Those cav will be in trouble. And even more in trouble are these Jan sword guards. These are the quality swordsmen that I was worried about. But like the saber troops we fought before, they seem to inherit the extreme weakness to cavalry. They lose 2/3 of their troops in seconds after we attack them. Not quite sure how they're this weak. Other units, even archers, take a while to kill with cavalry, but even quality swords do just die if you hit them with cav. I guess because it's Gong. Maybe his stats are through the roof at this point in the campaign because he's high level and such. That might just be it. So we clear out those units, but now we've got a bit of a problem. We're being hit by the enemy's crossbow bolts, and it was in this battle that I came to appreciate and learn that crossbows aren't just different to archers, like in Attila, where they had different pros and cons for using them versus archers or slingers. I think they're just straight up better. I think they're the upgrade. They have about 50% longer range, their firing rate's only slightly lower, and they have armor-piercing damage. So our front line of heavy spearmen is actually getting taken out from really, really far away. And that's going to be a problem, mainly because I wasn't really paying attention. I thought the enemy archers were shooting my front line of archers because I just couldn't believe the crossbowmen could shoot that far. I didn't even look back at my spears to see if they were being hit. After a while we charged forwards, and it was only at about this point in the battle I realised I was missing a whole ton of troops after I ordered them to charge. But anyway, a melee fight breaks out, and now our cav are free to go around and attack the enemy's back lines to deal with those crossbows. Plus I've got this second line of melee troops, so we're going to wait here for a chance to attack. It's not as good as outflanking the enemy and just rear attacking them, but it's less micro to have your second line wait, and then when the first line's dead or tired, just attack with the second one as well. It still does extra damage, and you don't really have to pay attention, which is of course one of my ideal priorities for picking strategies. So yes, my cav can charge in here, and again, we don't need to pay too much attention. We can just charge into this blob of various units that are all weak against everything, and once Gong Du gets in there, they're going to be in big trouble. We'll cut the crossbows down by the boatload, and the enemy strategist commander will get taken out as well, and then we turn the cav to attack the back of the enemy's melee line, and that's really going to seal the deal. It's a night attack, so just a little bit of pressure is enough to push all of the militia tier units out of the fight, and the stronger units are going to go just because everything else has gone. The army losses will start a chain rout, and very shortly that's going to be the end of that. The very quick battle is over. A close victory, so now we have to play another game of was it really a close victory? And as usual, it was actually fine. We lost something like 300 men, the enemy army is just completely taken out. And interestingly, we captured the enemy's commander, their faction leader, Yuan Shang, right here, so that's very nice. Might as well take this opportunity to execute him, especially because we can steal his stuff, which is as ever useful. And there's also this friends and rivals thing. I'm guessing the rival characters like you if you execute this guy, and in particular Cao Cao is a rival to the Yuan Shang faction. So having Cao Cao like us might be handy. I don't know what he's up to, but if he's got loads of territory somewhere on the other side of Yuan Shu, if we can one day make contact with him, that could be a nice ally if he'll dare to speak to us. As for this second guy, I almost spared him because I didn't really care about killing him, but we can steal his weapon if we kill him, and the reward for sparing them is so low. I think it needs to be about 10 times as high to really make it worthwhile. Annoyingly, we couldn't quite finish off the survivors this turn, but at the start of the next turn, I think they had all been disbanded or despawned or something, so we don't have to worry about them anymore. but we do have to worry about the fact that Kongrong is now on the move, and there's not really much we can do about this, or anything we can do about this, to be perfectly accurate. Here I was just seeing, do we have towers if we defend this battle, and if not, we'll just let them have it. If there was towers, there was a chance for some exploit wins there, but we don't get that. And we see Kongrong himself moving another army to the south, and a third army in the north, so we have intel they have 2/2.5 armies in the area. Gong is going to start moving up to counterattack Kongrong, because while he's attacking us, we can attack him nearby, thanks to the weird shape of our respective territories. So we'll do that, although we may have to sacrifice more territory, because looks like he's about to attack us and our other army isn't in place. This force under Wan Lo Yi is marching up, and perhaps in a couple of turns we'll be able to participate in the war. And another thing I'm going to try is take a few men to go up to the very top left of the map to Wu Wei Commandery and attack the Han Empire there as well. In this fashion we'll have 3 armies all pressing into the north, with the general objective of finally pacifying things and just ploughing through everything, taking back anything we lose and then going further to end the wars up there once and for all, especially if Lu Bu gets involved, which he may do since I'm planning to attack the Han Empire. Of course, this all relies on the enemy not attacking any of my huge, weirdly shaped, vastly exposed territory, so we'll see how this gamble pays off in the next part.